The leftists decided that discrimination is to be embraced to advance their revolutionary Marxist agenda. We've got this big case also in Virginia that Judicial Watch is involved in concerning Thomas Jefferson High School, which is a major science and technology school here just outside of Washington, D.C. and Fairfax, Virginia. It's known essentially as the #1 high school in America, or so I've been told. Although I have a feeling there are other high schools in America who think they're the #1 high school in America. But I guess, you know, based on grades and other content, they have alleged bragging rights. So what happened is, after the George Floyd protests, the leftists in Fairfax County who run the schools there, and the state is controlled by leftists, or was at that time, they looked at the Thomas Jefferson's student body. Now, Thomas Jefferson had selected its participants, or its students, by typically tests. You took a test, and if you did well on the test, you got in. So it was all merits-based. And they looked at the body, which was diverse, but it had the wrong type of diversity. It had too many Asian Americans. So the leftists decided that's the wrong type of minority, and we need to change the system of selecting students to make sure there are fewer Asian Americans and more Hispanics and black children. Completely at odds with the way schools are supposed to be run. A system that targets a minority to benefit others. And that's what they did. They did it with the help, obviously, at the local school district level, and they got support from the Virginia the Virginia state government, as I said, that was controlled by the left at the time. And we went into detail. So what happened is, you had a group of parents and students who were outraged by this destruction of that school with this racialism, this racist discrimination that was targeted at Asians. They sued, and a lower court said, "Are you kidding me? You can't do this. You can't say there are too many of one minority group and change the rules to punish them." Because they did change the rules. They pretended they didn't have a racial impact or a racial basis, but it resulted in less Asian Americans, Asian students being in Thomas Jefferson High School. And we filed an amicus brief. So they filed, they won at the lower court. The leftists running Fairfax have appealed, so it's now before the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. Just so you know, I know sometimes I presume everyone knows how our federal court system works, and it's complicated, and I'll explain. So if you have a federal court case, you typically bring it at the district court level, which is the first rung on the ladder. And those are just regular judges who are appointed by the president, and they sit and they handle cases individually. Now, if you get an adverse ruling and it's appropriate to appeal, then you appeal it to what is called the circuit courts, the appellate courts. And our court system at the federal level is divided into circuits. So if you live in Virginia and Maryland, you're part of the Fourth Circuit. The District of Columbia has its own circuit, which is the powerful D.C. circuit. Up in New York, you're part of the Second Circuit. I think up in northeastern New England, that's the First Circuit. 6 circuits in the Midwest. What's down Texas is the 5th Circuit. California and Company is the 9th Circuit. Giant circuit's too big. So you get the point. So all those, that's called the appellate courts. So the Fourth Circuit, which is generally controlled by the left, I don't know what the panel is here, is now considering this nakedly racist program to punish Asian students for being successful. Judicial Watch filed this amicus brief with our friends at the Allied Educational Foundation, asking the Court of Appeals to affirm the lower court ruling that Fairfax County's public schools race-based admissions policy is unconstitutional because it improperly considers race. And this is how we recounted what went on. As the court recounted, and this is the lower court, less than 2 weeks following the death of George Floyd, Thomas Jefferson their principal, emailed the entire community at Thomas Jefferson proclaiming that the demographics of Thomas Jefferson do not reflect the racial composition in Fairfax County Public Schools. The next day, a Fairfax County Public School Board member emailed a local legislature describing her, quote, anger and disappointment, unquote, regarding the underrepresentation of Black and Hispanic students and predicting there would be, quote, intentional action forthcoming from the county public school system. The records show that the board members admonished the superintendent that any forthcoming policy change needed to be, quote, explicit in how we're going to address the underrepresentation of Black and Hispanic students, unquote. Later at a public meeting, another board member explained that, quote, in looking at what has happened to George Floyd, Fairfax County must now recognize the unacceptable low numbers of African Americans that have been accepted by Thomas Jefferson. So why are the numbers unacceptably low? Is it because the tests are racist? Is it because that's not the case. They just didn't like, again, the result. Now, if you're a public official and you see a school, boy, there's a lot of Asians in a school, we've got a big African American community, we have a big Hispanic community, why aren't there a lot of Hispanic students and Black students in the school? Well, if they're not doing well on the tests, well, why aren't they doing well on the tests? Are we educating them well? What are the reasons for the lack of academic achievement that prevent them from getting into this top school that requires a high level of academic achievement? No, no, no. That isn't how they operated. They said, we're changing the rules. We don't like the racial makeup, and we're going to rig the system to guarantee a certain racial makeup. You sometimes hear disparate impact, and you should be suspicious sometimes, because sometimes there are rules that are straightforward and neutral that have, quote, what the left would call disparate impact and should be questioned, even though they were just straightforward neutral rules. In this case, these were not straightforward neutral rules. You can see the racialism and racism. You know, I'm a nice guy. I don't like to call people racist, believe it or not. I know the left likes to use that word a lot, because racism assumes that there's someone who morally just doesn't like people based on race, and maybe I'm too nice, right? So I guess racialism is my way of being nice. You can debate me whether I'm being too nice below. So we're asking the court to say no. You can't, as the lower court said, you can't use this unconstitutional scheme to limit Asian enrollment in the nation's top high school. So you've got this, and what I love about the left is you say something like Wuhan virus, or you talk about the Chinese origin of the virus, they accuse you of being anti-racist. The reason we had to take a break was because I was losing control of my chair here. I was like spinning out of control. But the reason, what I find very interesting about the left's hypocrisy here, and I shouldn't, the left obviously is full of hypocrisy, but they don't care, because it's all power politics to them. So what may be hypocrisy to us, to me is a feature of, to them is probably a feature of their approach. So if you talk about the Wuhan virus, or raise issues that the virus came from China, they accuse you of being anti-Asian, even though you're just being factual. The same group, the same ideological cohort, is happy to discriminate against Asians because they're Asians. Too many Asians in a high school. Let's get them out. That is still going on in modern day America. And it's going on because the left has decided that discrimination is to be embraced to advance their revolutionary Marxist agenda. Let me be blunt. You see this with college admissions, as we're talking about, with high schools. I've talked about the critical race theory attacks on America at our service academies like West Point. In Asheville, North Carolina, we sued in federal court, the city of Asheville, because they had a They thought they could get away with having a scholarship that specifically prohibited anyone but black Americans from applying. In California, we beat back California that was specifically mandating quotas based on race and sex and ethnicity and LGBTQ status. 2 big lawsuits, 2 big wins for the rule of law against the left that wanted to blow up the rule of law. The pandemic and emergencies we need to worry about in this country aren't COVID, aren't the monkeypox. They're attacks on, it's the attack on the rule of law and our Republican form of government. You see it with critical race theory, the embracing of discrimination and violation of the Constitution. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.